It was 2018, 2019. I was about 19 years old, and me and my partner, we were running a very profitable drop shipping store with Shopify, and we were making multi-thousand dollars a day. And what else can you imagine at this point in my life, right? Especially being a young teen, thinking everything is all right, everything's going well. But the reality of it, that wasn't the case. I was actually in my parents' basement and I just felt so depersonalized. What I was doing at the moment was I was just playing Fortnite. I was basically losing my hunger to go out and do more, accomplish more. I felt like I was just becoming depersonalized with my work, why I got started, what was the original vision for myself, why I was really doing it, and what was really the point of it, right? I would basically every single day from, I don't know, 6 to 7 a.m., maybe even a little later because I just had total control, freedom at that point. But the thing was, I was working anywhere from 10 to 12 hours a day, doing a lot of basically the operations within the business. And this was honestly impacting my health, my mental health, my relationship with my work, and ultimately just what it's even like to be a human. I wasn't really even a human at that point because I was escaping it with nicotine, with weed, with also just gaming and trying to escape from my business, whereas realistically I could have done so many other things. And really, what this is a sign of here was just a symptom of burnout. I just was in this locked routine where I was just doing the same thing every single day. Like it was almost a hamster wheel. And of course, it was a very busy time. There was so much going on. It was Q4 of the year, basically the end of the year when it's the most busiest and people are shopping the most online. And I just felt like I lost the hunger. There wasn't any real drive, any real motivation. And that is just kind of what burnout felt like. And I think that was the first time I ever truly felt what burnout was. It was just hard to get out of bed. I would not even sleep on like any sort of legit sleep cycle. I would just kind of wake up, do my thing, and that's it. And yeah, it was just like I was a zombie. But on the outside, sure, things may have looked cool, but on the inside, I was just a zombie, and I was kind of looking for ways out of it, unfortunately. And if you're watching this video, obviously we're going to be talking about burnout, but I just wanted to share a quick story of what it kind of felt like for me going through it. And obviously, what we're going to get through too in the video is what it really is and kind of some things I learned along the way. But before we get to that, real quick, I just want to share one more thing, and that is that even though after that point in time where I was that young and all these different things were happening, I was still very indoctrinated in all these different kinds of hustle hard mentality kind of things, right? People are telling you to work hard. If you work more, obviously you will get more work done, which in effect results in more success. And basically, that the whole game, all it's really about is just working more and not really enjoying life. Now, as I got a little older and I realized like why I'm working and what's a business really, what it really means for me to start one and stuff like that. At the time, it was just to do work and keep on doing it and keep on doing it. But at some point, even up to like most recently, when I just started taking it more seriously, that the end isn't just work. Like I would still, even up to like even early on this year and just moving forward, there'd be times where I would just like constantly just work and work and work and work. And then what this would ultimately result in is just me not being able to enjoy life and do other things outside of work, right? Do you ever just feel trapped, like you can't really move the ball forward, or that you're just doing these things out of just pure repetition at this point, and at the same time, nothing is really getting done, right? And I guess it kind of at some point just got to a point where there's this numbing process where you just become so numb to it because you're just so used to experiencing this. And I mean, at that point, it's really just mental will and resilience. And if you have a really strong mental health, I think I was just being super stoic at the time that was keeping me going through this whole entire process. Now, I'm not sure how many people can relate, but if you have been through like this like hustle hard work culture, it can significantly impact your life. And when you're just working constantly, not being able to communicate with friends, actually go out and experience life, go out and do things. It can take a huge toll on your life, especially like I'm only 24 right now, and most of my 20s up to now has just been work. I dropped out of college. I took routes and risks that I never thought I would take. And the thing is, it's not like I regret it. I know I signed up for this. But the thing is that if I can say, if I can label one word for my 20s up to now, 4 years, it's just work, right? Nothing else. So now let's get over to the main topic, because if you're watching this, most likely you're burnt out and you're wondering what you should do. And all I want to say is that I found some tactics, I guess you can say, tips, tricks, and ways you can overcome burnout, and what has actually worked for me. By no means am I any doctor or some sort of neuroscientist or some sort of therapist. I'm just sharing you what I've learned and what has worked for me from my own experience and how I have actually been burnt out. So that's just basically what it's going to be about. Real quick, we're just going to quickly run down a list of just different things of what burnout can potentially be signaling to you, right? Whether you know it is burnout or you don't. So some signs can include negative self-evaluation, cynicism, chronic exhaustion, increased job accidents, more turnover than normal, lower quality work, increased sick days, monopolized manager time, decreased productivity, projects fall behind schedule, negative spread throughout the team, lack of participation, small talk disappears, stress and burnout, overwhelm, finding ways to numb it, lack of feeling any reward, depersonalization. And this is just a small list. It's not the full list, but these are some major indicators of what burnout may be signaling to you, whether you're conscious of it or you don't, or you're not. And really all burnout is just this prolonged state of emotional exhaustion, right? Whereas stress is more so of a thing that impacts the physical aspect of your life. Burnout, from what I've learned, impacts your emotions, where you can feel trapped, stuck, and just completely soulless. And over a long term, it can significantly impact your health, both mental and physical. And to get a very critical point across towards everyone's mind, and it is that stress isn't a bad thing. In fact, there's actually two kinds of stress from what I've researched. There's distress and there's eustress. Eustress is more so the good stress, whereas distress is the bad stress. Stress, evolutionarily, has helped biology grow, right? It challenges the homeostasis of just like that static position our biology can be in. Like imagine if there was like life, right? And there was nothing challenging it. Stress, what it ultimately does is challenges biology. And when that happens, you're forced to adapt, you're forced to grow, you're forced for ways, or to find ways basically, how to evolutionarily grow as a human, as an animal, whatever it may be. So it's a very good thing, especially if you're applying it in a healthy manner. Whereas distress, over time, can basically compound into burnout, right? So distress compounded over time. Imagine just like a, I don't know, NPC character hitting you constantly for like 1,000 times, right? Once every single day for 1,000 days, right? Over time, that can compound into burnout. And when that happens is you just become emotionally zapped. Now that is obviously the stress we don't want in life, because stress can be a good thing. It's telling you you're learning, you're actually learning new skills, you're forcing your brain to grow, to fire different neurons, and then make new different synaptic connections, learning and connecting different pieces of information. So it can very well be a very good thing. But obviously, as we just said, if it turns out to be something unhealthy with distress, well, all this really is just going to keep you in a constant state of fight or flight. And when that is happening, there's a whole different host of things happening in your body, which is not only your heart rate is increasing, there's more blood pressure, there's all these different overwhelming things in your biology happening at the same time, which ultimately just keeps you in this constant alert mode, this fight or flight. Now imagine like you're always like this, like you're always very alert. You can't really sit down and relax. Like, have you ever just like ran away from something, or I don't know, done something you probably shouldn't have, and then you finally find like a moment to be like, yes, like I'm relaxed now, right? If you're always constantly in this state of distress and you're getting no sort of just state of calmness, you can say, right? Well, your body in the background is always in that state, and this can just have terrible effects on your mental health and all these different other life facets. So now I want to just really quickly cover exactly what proactive steps you can take for yourself if you're maybe going through burnout, and some of the things I have taken for myself that has helped me overcome it, right? So very first thing you can ask yourself, is the work, what you're doing, actually values aligned? And when you're framing it from that way, because like think about it, like some people, they don't have control, face it. Like maybe you're working for someone or you have a job, you're a freelancer, or I don't know, you have some sort of career, right? You can't just step out and control your time. We get it, right? So when you're in a position like that, or even if you're not in a position like that, who cares? What I want to get the point across is how can you reframe what you're doing where there builds a sense of purpose? Because most likely if you're not doing something that is enjoyable, pleasurable, it's much more harder to like actually feel any stress or burnout or anything. Like I even noticed this myself too. Like times when I've been working on projects I find really interesting and meaningful, I just don't really feel stressed. So if you're not in a position where it feels that way, then it's more so about reframing your relationship to work. And that is, all right, let's say you're working at, like, for instance, I don't know, a manufacturing plant, right? And let's say these people are manufacturing water cartons, right? Like instead of using plastics, water cartons to fill them up and use them as water instead. So maybe it may feel soulless to you, but rather instead you can reframe it as something that may go along the lines of, hey, like we're actually doing some good here in the world. What we're actually doing instead is we are eliminating plastic. We're using biodegradable cartons for water, right? And we're actually saving planet Earth. When you reframe it that way, you're basically changing the story. Ultimately, what I'm telling you here is to repatternize and change the story you're telling yourself, because we're storytelling machines, right? Like that's one of the biggest advantages of why in evolution humans have survived up to this point. It's the stories. We can all unite under these stories, and we can even change the stories, tell stories, whatever. So even if that same thing happens in your head, the stories you tell yourself. And if you can change the story you tell yourself with your relationship to work, how you're perceiving it, what your paradigm is, you can also potentially change your relationship to it so you can build some sort of deeper fulfillment with what you're doing. And so when you're going into work every single day, there's actually some sort of fulfillment, some sort of purpose. You feel more values aligned. That's another thing I want to talk about. Values aligned. Now, when I started e-commerce originally, it was mostly because of external rewards, right? It was all the money you can make, all the potential status you can get, all these different things. Now, sure, it could be good for the short term, but long term, it can have a negative impact for you. I'm not saying e-commerce is bad in general. No. It's just the way and the approach I took to enter the space, right? Everything is just objective in the end. In the end, it's just the subjective way we perceive things, go into things, and actually tell a story of like why we're doing things. Now, here's the thing. If it's just purely extrinsic, the rewards you're getting, the person that's always going to be intrinsically motivated for doing the thing that they're doing, they're going to beat you all the time, no matter what. Whether you're working within a team or you're working on your own thing, the person who's intrinsically rewarded, that person will always outwork you no matter what. And they'll always focus on getting better because they actually care. So that is just being purely extrinsically rewarded. Now, when it comes to being intrinsically rewarded, what I mean is actually Steven Kotler talks a lot about flow, peak performance, and human optimization. Something interesting he talks about is one of the 5 key intrinsic motivators that motivates humans to basically become superhuman. The 5 key intrinsic motivators that Steven Kotler talks about is curiosity, purpose, passion, autonomy, and mastery. When you can align your work with whatever you're doing with these 5 key intrinsic motivators, and there's more, but these are like the 5 main ones. If you can align as much of these as possible with your work, what we can ultimately do is basically find something that always triggers these values. And when you're always curious about the work, you feel like you're growing with mastery. You feel like you're serving something much larger than yourself with purpose, right? And hitting all these other different intrinsic motivators. What's happening is you're just basically unlocking this unknown energy and like this power with inside of you to go out there and actually produce meaningful work that matters, right? This is what it means to become values aligned. And it's not necessarily just these values in themselves, but there's also other like motivators you can use, such as like if you value family, or if you value contribution, or if you value humor, right? If humor is one of your top values, how can you always make the workplace fun? Or just be more funny around the workplace? Or what if you just had a sort of work where you're just funny 24/7, right? If you're hitting these very big prized and valued values with your life, you're basically coming into work that just feels like play because it's just something enjoyable, so pleasurable to you, like on a very deep level. And when it's like that, then there really isn't a lot of room for burnout or, all this negative stress and mental anxiety and angst and all these negative feelings, right? You just feel more driven. You look new sides of yourself to go out there and push yourself to actually experience positive stress. I was probably like hypothesize. I don't know if this is like true scientifically, but anytime I've experienced it, it was always just positive reinforcement to keep on doing the thing because I'm enjoying it. And overall, like when you're experiencing burnout, a huge thing I found is that purpose is waning and you're just potentially not connected with your work. Retelling or reframing the story you're telling yourself is a big component that has helped serve me and some people I spoke about burnout as to how they can reconnect more with that side of themselves, with whatever they're doing. You may love your work, you may love doing the thing, whatever you're doing. Now, what are some other proactive measures you can potentially take? Some, for instance, like especially if you're working a lot, whatever, you can take more intentional walks, listening to podcasts, maybe just being present, maybe just actually scheduling some time for rumination and just allowing yourself to think deeply on just everything going on and processing things in your life, right? These are some things I've done for myself. Also to scheduling breaks within your work. That is actually very, very effective. Just having regular breaks, 5-15 minutes, going outside, getting some sun, like super simple, stupid stuff, right? And then another one where you can actually schedule your work into blocks. Blocks as in like a 30-minute block, 60-minute block, 90-minute block, whatever. But then after these blocks, you're able just to take your foot off the pedal and just relax real quick. Take that break we were just talking about, right? Maybe get your mind on something else, a YouTube video, reading a page of a book, maybe catching up with a friend or something like that. Something very simple just to get your mind off of it. Because you can't always just be going at like 100 miles per hour. You also have to be able to stop and just basically let the car, I guess you can say, rest. Some other ways I found for burnout to go away is when I'm getting healthy amounts of rest. And this is actually going into like active recovery, such as taking cold showers, also being able just to relax and just do nothing, right? I know as crazy as that seems, unproductive as hell, but just doing literally nothing. That's also healthy. Active recovery can also span into like doing yoga or doing things like some sort of like simple body movements where it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing some sort of full workout, but just some sort of body movement to just release any tension. Same thing with just getting a lot of like sleep, anywhere from I would say 8.5 hours, where now I'm getting about 8 hours of sleep per day, and treating sleep as if it's very, very sacred. Because sleep, if there's one aspect in your life you can optimize for your health, it would just be sleep. And the reason so is just because there's so many negative consequences of what happens when you just miss out on sleep. It could literally mess up your whole brain, your life, your willpower, your cognitive function, like so many things that it just can just make you like a vegetable, right? And you don't want that. So if there's one area you can improve on just to improve your whole, or just even help eliminate burnout, you just get some more sleep. Another one I would focus on, like activity or some proactive action you can do, is doing some sort of oxytocin activities, meaning sharing gratitude, right? Whether it's just like for yourself, like priming. There's this one Tony Robbins priming exercise when you're doing like these like sort of Wim Hof breathing exercises. And then what I do like my own version of it, but like I do these really intensive breathing exercises. I think it's called like breath of fire, where you're like you're doing that for about 15-30 seconds, and then you're just going to the state of gratitude. And usually what I do is I send wishes. I guess you can call it praying, you can just call it like a moment to yourself, whatever. And I just send gratitude to people I care about, love about, or maybe thinking about, even like for some things going on in my life. How do I feel about myself? Like all the things I'm going through. So that's like another thing you can do. Another oxytocin exercise you can do is maybe just call up a friend. And oxytocin is basically this neurotransmitter in your brain, and that has lot to do with just social bonding, relationships, like nurturing, family, right, kids, whatever. It's basically the love neurotransmitter, I guess you can say. What I know for sure, it has something to do with social relationships. And with that said, just when you release it, it reduces anxiety, reduces stress, and it genuinely does just bring out that love aspect into your life. And when you do it by maybe just texting someone, hey, I was thinking about you, or just call someone up, or you just have a talk with your family member, or even just engage in some sort of community, something you like engaging with, it just releases these oxytocin, these feel good chemicals, and it just kind of, I guess you can say, like cools out the stress and potentially even the burnout. And just start with a simple habit, just be like, hey, thinking about you, hope all is well. That's it. Maybe just expressing some gratitude. I usually just do some gratitude in the morning and throughout the day when I want to change my state. I just do that breathing exercise I was just showing you. So that's that. And these are obviously some obvious ones, but like meditation is helpful. Doing some sort of transcendental meditation, breathing exercises, or just some sort of awareness meditation where you can just simply be in the present moment. And the last thing that has significantly helped me is just the diet, right? Getting adequate amounts of water, probably like a gallon a day for me. Sticking away from a lot of sugars, right? Refined carbs. Sticking away from candies and unhealthy processed foods. I think that has taken a significant, or it has basically impacted my mental health significantly. And yeah, I mean, I just feel great. Like, you just feel great. Also, another really big one, removing stimulants that impact your nervous system, because that also creates that alertness and fight or flight state, right? Such as overconsumption with caffeine, coffee, right? If you have, I believe it's when you cross over 400 milligrams of caffeine per day, it just becomes like really unhealthy for you. I mean, I just completely eliminated caffeine out of my life, just I guess for now. But nicotine was a big one for me, which I got rid of. That like creates increased levels of high blood pressure, and I think also just, yeah, the high blood pressure always just makes you like anxious and stuff like that. Also too, like you're covering up your emotions and stuff like that. It's hella annoying. But got rid of that. And yeah, anything else that can be potentially overstimulating your body. But yeah, these are basically some things I found useful for myself that has worked for me, and I just want to share it with you, like my story with it, what I learned from it, and some actual proactive measures I've taken to overcome it. And I guess, yeah, I guess you could say I beat burnout, right? I'm not saying like I'm completely immune to it, but I actually have like the tools, and I guess you can say I know what to do if it does come back around. Biggest one for sure is reframing the way I see work, the way I see and view work, right? You can basically change your story around anything, how you're viewing it. So that was basically the biggest one for me. So that'll be all for the video. If you've watched it all the way to the end, shout out to you. Thank you. I just want to make two quick announcements. First one is I literally just released my first newsletter ever from, I guess you can say, my personal brand. So first newsletter just went out. If you want to get some awesome insights coming directly into your email, check out my site. You can get into my newsletter. Second thing is I just released my, I guess you can call it a free guide on how I actually researched back then really interesting dropshipping products that were super, super profitable. So if you're interested in that, check it out. It's absolutely free. You get it all on my website. So other than that, once again, much love. Thanks for staying all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.